Welcome to another episode of the Modern Agile Show. I am here with my friend Woody Zuill. We are together at Lean Agile US in Fort Lauderdale. It is very nice to be with you here.
Yeah, it's great to see you again.
I think we wanted to do this interview in Australia a couple months ago.
Oh, yeah.
But we never got around to it.
We only had 2 weeks together.
How did that happen? I don't know. But anyway, we had a lot of fun down there. So. Yeah. It is a pleasure to be with you, Woody. You are an Agile instructor, Agile writer, Agile teacher, guide. You've been involved in some wonderful, incredible things. The father of mob programming.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll accept that. That's close. I'm probably the cousin of mob programming.
Oh, no, I don't think so. And of course, one of the leading pioneers of no estimates.
Yeah, that's true.
And you also do other things like refactoring and teaching workshops like that. So that's awesome. All around great guy, and this is a pleasure. So we get to talk about whatever we want for some time here. I thought that maybe you might want to talk about mob programming. I don't know.
No, that's my favorite topic.
Okay.
And I think it really jives well with the work you've done over the years.
Absolutely.
The basic idea is software development is a human activity, and we work with other people really throughout the whole process. So let's figure out how to work well together.
Yes.
And that's essentially all mob programming is.
That is a very eloquent and simple way to describe it. And you came to it at a company in Southern California, right?
Yeah, Hunter Industries, manufacturer of irrigation parts, irrigation systems for landscaping.
Yeah.
So very unrelated to software development, although they use a lot of software development.
And what led you to mobbing? Because prior to that, what were you doing and what led you to it?
Yeah, so probably I'd say the last 10 years leading up to that was me trying to figure out how to introduce Agile concepts at the companies I was working at, and at the same time, maybe a little beyond Agile. So Agile takes it so far, but there's way more to it than just Agile. And just the simple activities of day-to-day life are a part of every programmer's life. You'll see if you're working with someone every day, they're going to have a different mood, a slightly different approach. And I was trying to learn how do we keep working well together day after day when we're in this imperfect world of people who have, I'll just give a simple scenario. If that morning you had to take your dog to the vet and you're worried about your dog all day, you're going to work differently than the day before when you didn't have to do that.
That's right.
So all these interactions throughout the day, it's not just about our work, or it's not just about, oh, that guy's a jerk. It's that, boy, they've got pressures in their life and we've got pressures in our life, and how are we going to work together?
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it.
So, but at Hunter, were you doing non-mobbing, I'll say, right?
Yeah, so when I came on, there was somebody working there that I'd known for years, and they wanted to promote her to being the manager of this group. And she didn't want to be a manager, she wanted to keep coding. And she suggested that they interview me. So when I came on, I had two main goals. One was I wanted to help this team move past the things that were blocking them and become a highly effective team. And at the same time, maybe this is a very selfish thing, I wanted people to say, oh, Hunter, I'd love to work there. So I'd been in enough places where people would say, they would tell their friends, you won't want to work here. And I wanted to be someplace where you could tell your friends, you'd love working here, you should come.
Yeah.
So we started setting up for that, and the way that I focused on it was 5 or 6 things that I think are important. One is, if you have technical debt, and a lot of it, you have to learn not only how to get rid of the technical debt, but not how to not create it. And maybe technical debt's the wrong term. If you've got code that's difficult to work on and everybody hates it, let's get rid of it somehow. We got to figure that out.
Yes.
Another thing that's really important to me is let's work well together. And if we are 6 programmers working in 6 cubicles, our chances for working together are rather slim.
Yes.
And then we divide ourselves even further in this case by most of them are working on different things. So I'm working on this project, you're working on that project. Our chance for collaboration is quite narrow. Someone else is doing nothing but bug fixes on another project, and so on. So those 2 things were kind of a start, but let's add to that I believe we need to study together. Studying together I'd learned this a few years earlier, is that when the pressure of work is off, we can be more the person we want to be. And then we start liking each other because we're helping each other. You don't help someone because you like them because you help them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it started growing that way. And then two more things. One that's really important to me is that we get good at getting value from our retrospectives. Not that we do them because it's a ceremony we do, but we do them because it's bringing us value, it's helping us. And the last thing is, with our retrospectives, we follow this technique of turn up the good. If something's working for us, then why do we think it's good, and how do we increase that goodness? It's like going to you're at a hotel like we're at right now, and they have a buffet, and there's 3 different desserts. What do? You go and get the one you think you'll like, but boy, when you take a bite of it and you go, no, I didn't like that. You're not going to eat any more of it. You take another one, you go, I like that, and you're going to get more of it. So let's look for the good, and when we find it, let's turn it up. So those little things that's what I basically bring with me as my philosophy.
Yes.
And I think Agile itself is sort of, if not completely, it's really closely aligned to it, with that first manifesto value of individuals and interactions.
Yes.
I've never found a way. You can't hire a really excellent programmer with getting all their flaws as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really about the individuals.
Now, from my perspective with Modern Agile, I see you creating a tremendously safe environment.
It's about that safety.
So make safety a prerequisite. The individual interactions in a mob, it seems to me what you're saying is, people are going to come to work sometimes and they're not going to be themselves, or they're going to be a little off. And you've created an environment where they can be safe to be whoever they are that day.
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
So let's talk about that for a minute. That doesn't come for free, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
So we can say it's easy, but there's humans who are naturally adept at it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just from their background. What did they do in their lives that led them to this state where they're more able to feel that the sense what the people around them are feeling?
Right.
But boy, as a team, we have to figure it out. We used a little technique for that. One day we were noticing we were really getting on each other's nerves. And one of the team members had been navigating another person, and they were getting shorter and shorter and louder with their navigation. This is something you got to watch out for. It's like when you're guiding someone else, you got to treat them nicely, and that wasn't happening.
In other words, there's a person at the keyboard and mouse, and this is a navigator who's saying what to do. Yeah,
so the rest of the team is the navigators, and usually when we're putting code into the computer, there's someone who's got the idea well enough to guide someone else to key it in.
Yeah.
So, it can be really simple, like click on the undo button. No, the undo button. The one to the right. No, the right. No, the other right. They use these techniques, and pretty soon we're irritating each other instead of working well together. So we gather together in a room, to a quiet room, to do a little exercise where we would talk about and then put on the Post-it notes how we each wanted to be treated. How do I want to be treated?
Yeah.
And we each wrote that down. An example would be somebody writes down, I want to be treated as if I'm an equal. Yeah. Somebody else writes down, I want to be treated, with a little bit of humor. Don't just accept it that, I understood what you said. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when we were done with that exercise, we had about 100 Post-it notes. That's a lot of Post-it notes.
That is.
And we gathered them into groupings, and we found 3 words that were the overall theme. And we adopted this as our agreement of working with each other. We want to be treated with kindness, consideration, and respect. Now, I'm not good at that myself, and some of the other team members weren't as well. We didn't know. We would already be doing that if we knew how to do it.
Right.
So we made this little kind of a pact with each other. For one day, let's pretend like we're kind, considerate, respectful people. Each one of us will pretend like we're the person everyone else would want us to be. And that's easy to do for a day.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we would do this end of day retrospective every day, 5 minutes. What went well? And everybody said, boy, that was a lot better. Just pretending that we could be nice to each other.
For that one day. For
one day. So, of course, turning up the good is, let's do that again tomorrow.
Do it again.
And after 2 or 3 days, people started looking up, well, what's interfering with us being nice to each other? And we started learning, well, how do you listen to someone else?
Mm-hmm.
How do you, another really important one is when people have a thought they're started, they might have some gaps in their sentences. As they're forming those thoughts, that's not the time for you to jump in and say, oh, I think we need to this. You just let them get to the end of their thought. Mm-hmm. Another good one is when you're giving someone direction, you're now paying attention.
Yes.
Rather than just giving the direction, expecting them to automatically know what you're talking about.
Right.
So I could go on and on, but that's one of the examples.
Mm-hmm.
This is about working well together.
Yeah.
And I know I say this everywhere I go. So your listeners have probably heard this, but I think I'm a much better person today than I was 5 or 6 years ago when we started doing this.
Yeah.
Because it was daily focus on being a nicer person.
Yep.
I'm not just rough around the edges, I'm rough through and through, but I'm still, I feel I've progressed a lot just by that experience.
Yeah, and this is consistent with what you said earlier, which was that the retrospectives are super important for finding ways to improve. And you're telling a story that shows that in action.
Yeah, so I would ask anybody who is having trouble with the retrospectives to consider doing a tiny retrospective at the end of every day.
Yes.
Now, I don't necessarily recommend doing it, except for I recommend giving it a try, because I really feel uncomfortable saying this is going to solve your problem. But I was showed that, I think, by Ainsley.
Yeah, Ainsley Neese, yeah.
Ainsley Neese, or maybe Mary Poppendieck. I'm not sure which. I don't know, 10 years ago or something. They said, oh yeah, here's something you can try. And I don't even know if they'd tried it. They just said, here's something you can try.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I just got finished talking to Colleen Johnson about continuous retrospectives and the ability to, do those. So it's.
Oh, yeah. So this is bordering on that.
Yeah.
And so then we started a practice we call just-in-time retrospectives.
Oh, okay, so that's
anytime someone noticed something, they would say, we should reflect on that right now.
That's right. That is continuous retrospective, and that's awesome.
That actually worked really well, too. As the team members got better and better at noticing things.
Yes.
That's paying attention is half the game, maybe.
Yeah, it is. And somehow, like, by stopping immediately, and having that retrospective, the value of the thoughts, the value of that, it's immediate. And to me, this is delivering value continuously. It's like saying, aha, there's a valuable lesson for us to learn here. Yeah. Again, experiment and learn rapidly. So how can we leverage that now rather than waiting even to the end of the day or even to the end of the week or the end of the sprint? I know we can talk about the sprints in a minute. But
you're making a really good point, because when we're trying to manage our time, we will often think that will interrupt what we're doing if we break for that.
Right.
But I think it's not even a trade-off. It's kind of like we're going to lose the value of this if we don't note it right now.
That's right.
If tomorrow we say, well, I made a note about something that happened yesterday, just getting us all back into the same context can be impossible.
Yeah.
I don't think the human brain works in such a way that we can pull all of that feeling back a day later.
Right, it's right there, it's immediate. It just happened. It's a good time to talk about it. Yeah. And the work can wait, because it's the team is like a learning machine.
Right. That's a good way to think about it.
And so the more that learning machine learns, the more high performing it can be.
Yeah.
So to me,
that's a great point. I like that.
Well, we see it when we mob, and I should say to the members here watching, we Industrial Logic, we've been mobbing for many years now, and helping our customers mob and multi-mob, which is setting up lots of mobbing stations for one team that they can do. And of course you guys do that at Hunter, I think, right? Yeah. Is that term you guys use, multi-mobbing?
I don't know if they do. I'd have to check, because I get back there about, I don't know, once a month maybe, or a couple, 3 times a year at least.
To Hunter.
So to Hunter, I'm not sure they're trying all kinds of stuff. Matter of fact, that's something else I really like to share. When I left there, I had felt that there were things that they had learned, but they were depending on me to keep it going. And I really felt I needed to let them become the full mob programmers that they were going to become without leaning on me.
Yes.
And probably in some other ways I would be holding them back without even knowing it.
Yeah, sure.
I think we tend to do that. I see this with parents with their kids. It's like, he got a traffic ticket, we got to, and then they pay the traffic ticket for the kid who should, go and earn that money and pay that traffic ticket themselves.
That's right.
Don't take parenting advice from me. But my daughter really turned out wonderfully. But, one example is not the rule. So I didn't have 20 kids to practice with.
Right.
So, but I really want to make that. I think that's what I felt, is that the team will grow into its fullness if they don't lean on the thing that got them there. And I felt that was necessary.
What if a team adopts mob programming but doesn't retrospect and doesn't deal with those impersonal problems and personality things and stuff that come up?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think in Agile, overall, the concept in Agile is to frequently review how things are going.
Yes.
And I'm not sure, like the example I often give is I try to maintain my weight when I'm traveling. You get extra desserts and extra food, and people go, oh, we just got here, let's all go out to eat. So you get more meals than you would ever eat, so I got to really watch it.
Yes.
When I'm at home, I can weigh myself every morning and go, I overdid it yesterday. I'm going to walk more today and eat less today.
Right.
So that reflection every day is a habit. And if we don't have the habit, things will creep up on us.
Yes, absolutely.
Until we can't handle them.
Oh yeah.
You know, this is the same with everything. I remember as a kid, I had a leak in a radiator in a truck, and I just kept filling it up. And one day I forgot to fill it up, overheated, cracked the block.
That's expensive.
So that's a good lesson to learn when you're young. But you gotta tend to these things as they occur, not wait till next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't really have a lot of great advice. I'm not sure a team can last very long if they're not reflecting. Yeah. And this is where coaches come in really well. And I'm not going to talk about coaches as being software development coaches, but coaches in like a sport.
Yes.
When I was a kid, I ran track in high school. I was only passable. I could win maybe every now and then. But I remember one day I won a race, and my coach came over, and I was expecting him to just, be so ecstatic I had done so well. And he said, yeah, good race. But that last course, I was running the 2 mile. Nobody even runs 2 mile anymore. It's called something else now. I measure it differently.
880?
Well, that's
the 440. The 440 is... 440
is a quarter mile. So it'd be
that's right.
2 mile would be closer
to
some kind of K, right?
Right.
I don't know how many. Anyways, so the last half a lap, I had pretty much sprinted and got away from the rest of the pack really a lot.
Wow.
And my coach came over to me and said, that probably felt pretty good, but your time isn't as good as it would have been if you'd used that energy through the rest of the race. So by saving that much energy to the end of the race, you lost your chance of improving your time. Now, that taught me an important lesson, and it's this, that the coach can observe things that you don't yet understand or can't observe. One of the things that really worked well for me during that time was my coach said, the way you're placing your left foot, you're going to hurt yourself soon. So let's learn to put your foot at a slightly different angle. The coach is watching for things that you can't know yourself.
Yes.
This was an important life lesson.
Oh, yes.
Because when you're on the team, you can't observe all the things because you're focused on the work. That's part of why we should practice together, so we can change that role. And maybe on the team, you should switch out the role of a coach and say, for a while, why don't you watch the rest of the team and see what's going on, and then I will, then they will. And we have to find a way, if you don't have a permanent coach, someone that's slightly outside and their main job is to pay attention to what's going on.
Just observing,
Just observing.
Almost like a journalist, yes.
Oh, that's a good way to think of it.
Yeah. And I know you're also passionate about the team learning, so in a lot of your teams, you give them time.
Yeah.
And is it what's the frequency of that?
Well, at first, before we were mob programming, it was every Friday for 3 hours.
Yes.
And
individual study?
So we gave it everyone had an option. I bought 3 books for everybody. One was, I think it was Clean Code.
Refactoring to Patterns.
Refactoring to Patterns.
Oh, really?
Clean Code and Working Effectively with Legacy Code. I was going to save that for last. You spoiled the surprise.
I'm sorry. I want people to
absolutely
buy the book, buy many copies of the book.
Yeah,
you need Kindle. You need everything.
Yeah, I want the Audible version.
I need to I actually need to update that book, but that's not true.
But here's the thing. I did get those 3 books and a library of other books that we could share, but those 3 books for every developer. And I didn't expect anybody to do anything with them, but by making them available, you are hinting at we honor the learning here. But we set aside 3 hours, so it's totally voluntary. You want to come study with the rest of the group, you can. If you want to stay at your desk and study, you can.
That's wonderful.
If you want to stay and work on something, you can. There's no rule. But if you come with the group, we need to decide how are we going to study together.
Yes.
And this was the beginnings. This was pre-mob programming. This was beginnings of it. We were doing a coding dojo. Just the typical group coding dojo where you have 5 or 6 people, maybe more, and you switch out the pair every few minutes. So everybody's kind of observing.
Yep, like a fish tank.
And so the pair itself, we had a very strict rule. The observers, everybody who wasn't part of the pair, could not talk. They could just listen.
Right.
The person at the keyboard could talk, but they could only ask clarifying questions of the navigator, which would be the other person.
Yeah.
They had to know where are we going next and what steps are we going to take. Now, if the navigator themselves didn't know what to do, we had a simple rule. Explain what it is you don't get about this. So the next person has an idea of how to help you as we go forward. Now, another simple rule we followed was you could never say, I don't like what we've done, delete it. You could only refactor, as long as we had at least one running test. Because we always kept the tests running, passing. As long as you had at least one running test, you had to refactor to your idea. So say your idea at the highest level of intent, and then guide the person at the keyboard at whatever level of detail they need, and say it enough, clearly enough, the level of intent, so the next person can follow your intent.
Love it.
So we chose this way of practicing. We offered ourselves anyway. So I shared the 3 or 4 coding dojos styles that I knew and asked the team who's got another idea, because we could do a book. I used to do book study groups. You buy everybody a copy of a book and you read through it and work the examples, whatever. They chose to do this because it's actually a lot of fun.
Nice.
And after I would say 3 or 4 weeks of doing it, we had become pretty good at this. Here's the trick. Keeping your mouth shut for 4 or 5 turns until you're the navigator is tough to do. So it's a good lesson. You can practice this with your team. It's a way to learn to listen to other people. Because nobody's interrupting the navigator. The driver has to follow the instructions, so it's good for advanced developers to have the patience to just do what they're asked to do.
And did this influence mob programming?
Well, I think this was, I think there were 4 or 5 things that led up to it, and this was one of them. I think that the learning to be quiet was not an intention, but it's the result. And that learning to be quiet made our first mob programming sessions extremely valuable. Matter of fact, when we broke through the mob programming, one day there was a project that we had that the team, 2 of the people I think on the team had worked on before, and I put it on the back burner when I got there. I have this bit of a philosophy as well. If we're having trouble writing the programs that we're supposed to be writing, then maybe we need to learn some stuff before we try to write those programs.
Absolutely.
So let's wait till we build our skills. And we were trying to learn the clean code kind of skills. And I think they were learning them. One of the important things I wanted was I didn't want to say to anybody, boy, your code is terrible. I wanted them to tell me, boy, my code is terrible. So how are they going to learn that? But by doing these coding dojos, where we were learning what bad code looks like. We did some refactoring dojos or katas and some like the bowling and tic-tac-toe and so on. One day it was time to start working on one of these projects, and the people that worked on before, they said, we're going to go look at it and refresh our memory about it. So they came back after about an hour, and they almost exactly said, boy, this code is terrible. And I thought, inside of me, I thought, I'm so glad to hear that. On the outside, I said, oh, well, what do you want to do? And they said, well, we'd like to gather the whole team together. That's 6 of us or whatever, in a room, and look at the code and decide, what are we going to do? Because we have a 3-month or 4-month deadline now.
Sounds like mobbing to me.
And that's so.
So a lot of things led to this.
We gathered together to look at the code, but as soon as we started looking at it, there's a thing they call it read by refactoring.
Yes,
you heard that?
That's Arlo's,
And so at that time, that's what we were doing. That's before we had heard of it, but our idea always was, if you don't understand the code, start
refactoring until you understand it.
And pretty soon you will understand it, and the next time you look at it, it'll be easier. So that's what we started doing. Someone on the team literally said, and I'm not sure if it was the person at the keyboard, but let's pretend it was. They said, oh, look at that, there's a long method. Well, how do you tell there's a long method? If you've got to scroll more than one screen worth,
Yep.
you probably should refactor it.
That's right.
And they said, oh, and we know how to fix that. And they stood up, gave the keyboard to someone else, and started guiding them through that refactoring. But a big change happened. The rule that we had that no one else can talk, we didn't follow. As soon as we started refactoring, somebody else said, oh, wait a second.
You can do this.
That automatic refactoring just introduced a in-out parameter. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Sure. Yeah,
we don't like those.
Yeah, C sharp. Yeah.
You know, that's a rule that we try to follow is don't have those. And so they say, oh yeah, look at that. So undo the refactor, and then let's maybe we got to put that into maybe a parameter object or something like that.
Yeah.
And off we went, helping each other as we went, never stumbling over each other.
So this. We probably got to close the show out here, but this is wonderful. It's really, to me, what you're telling me is it's rooted. Mobbing is rooted in learning.
It's rooted in learning.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, so I want to share an idea. I don't want to interrupt you.
Please.
Have you read the paper from Sturman and Repenning? I hope I say their name right. The one that's called "Nobody Ever Gets Credit for Solving Problems That Didn't Happen."
No, I've never read that.
It's a short, nice paper. There are a couple of professors at MIT.
Yeah.
And their basic premise is we are always solving problems and not setting us up to not have those problems. And how are we going to do it? We can do it by increasing our capability. And their premise is we should spend more time improving our capability than doing the work we're supposed to be doing. Well, if that's true, and I think it is, because at Hunter we grew to 8 hours a week of study.
Yeah.
We started with 3 and we grew to 8. I think we should spend it over half our time learning how to improve our capability, and not setting that as like, oh yeah, study at home or listen to podcasts as you go to work or
it's
something
very
like
consistent, I think, with the Toyota way, and basically stopping the line. You're stopping the line constantly to learn.
Yes. So if we observe something and don't stop the line, that's bordering on neglect.
That's right.
Maybe. I'm going to hold this up because I think something from this probably relates to what we just said.
Well, experimenting and learning, of course, is so key. And ultimately, you're trying to make people awesome. So, I mean, whatever you're building, that software, if it's high quality, and I know you guys produce high quality code, then there will be high quality products. And the people, I've met people who use Hunter products, and they love them. I mean, they absolutely love those products.
I'll do a plug for them. I don't even work there anymore, but I'll say this. When I bought my home 15 or more years ago, we had there were Hunter sprinklers in our lawn, and they are still there, and they're still working. You know,
Is your code in them? Or,
so that was non-code stuff. I mean, that's just the highest quality product. I'm amazed with it. I've always enjoyed, I've known of them for years, and I've used their products, but I'm not trying to sell their stuff. It's just, it was great to work at a place where their byline currently is built on innovation.
Oh, beautiful.
And so software is about innovation, and if we don't take time to innovate, we're probably losing out.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Woody. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Hey, subscribe to the Modern Agile Show. Tell your friends about it. We really appreciate all the views, and thanks again for watching.